are tuned into the DNVR Rockies podcast brought to you by Bet365. Use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary with Bet365. Welcome in, everyone, to the show. Happy Monday, everyone. We're starting another week here on the pod, and we continue on this road stretch for the Rockies as they have been gone for a long time. But you know who's also gone, but making his triumphant return, at least to the pod from afar? Our good friend Noah Spirek joining us today. Noah, all the way from Indiana, welcome back to the show. Happy to have you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pumped to be hopping on, and I miss the number one, the non-humid air in Denver, and I miss going to the ballpark each day. Man, going to the ballpark was so much fun, but
yeah, you had the best office, I think, that out of any of your peers throughout the summer. I mean, you got to spend your summer at Coors Field watching baseball, and I don't think it gets much better than that, especially, being in college still. That's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, well, most of my other friends that, weren't working part-time jobs and they did have an internship, it was a cubicle. And so I had the best cubicle in the world.
Literally the best cubicle in the world. I also see that you have taken your Rockies pride with you on the road. Do you get any hate for being a Colorado sports fan in Indiana, or is it just like college? You get that kind of like mixing bowl of different fan bases.
I think most of the Colorado hate, if there is any, would come from being a Broncos fan. And there's not a lot of that because Peyton Manning kind of combined the Colts and Broncos fans into one. But if you're a Rockies fan, who's really hating on you? Seriously?
Yeah, the Rockies have to be playing a little better to get some hate from the national fan base world. But hey, let's talk national excitement right now, because the Rockies actually have a player right now, a newer player, not someone named Charlie Blackmon, Ryan McMahon, who is currently making national headlines, and he's been doing it pretty much since July, and that's Brenton Doyle. Brenton Doyle kind of burst onto the scene nationally in July, winning the NL Player of the Month for the month of July. And I think it was kind of an introduction, I would say, to the national MLB audience, to who Brenton Doyle is, someone that can be super athletic, super talented, like very similar to like a Jackson Merrill type of player. And he hasn't gotten, I think, a lot of the recognition because he plays on the Rockies in a smaller baseball market, at least from a national perspective. But I think these past few weeks, he's really burst onto the scene based on some of his defensive play. And I know you've seen, some of the highlights. I know our fans here for the Rockies have seen some of the highlights. But from afar, you haven't been at these games for the Rockies since you went back to college. You've gotten to see Brenton Doyle and what he's done defensively, some of the highlight reel plays that he's made defensively. Do you feel like the national traction for Doyle is picking up given the way he's playing that center field spot for the Rockies right now?
Sure. I think the diving catch, or it wasn't the diving catch, the double play that he had, of course, I'm getting all the diving catches confused with his missile double play that he had in Milwaukee in the ball game. That throw out, I think it was 95 miles an hour, but it was posted on John Boy Baseball. The official MLB account posted it. And that exposure will always help build a household name. But when you look at the Rockies as a whole, it's pretty forgotten that Chris Bryant's even on the team from a national perspective. And of course, locally, I put in air quotes, we know that he's on the squad. But the Rockies have to have a face of the franchise, and a lot of people want it to be Tovar. He's inked to that long 8-year deal. Doyle is very rapidly approaching that status, however, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think with Tovar, and I was saying this on the podcast the other day, but I'll say it with you here because I want to get your thoughts on this. With Tovar, he is a phenomenal player. There was no arguing that. But I think from a personality standpoint, and you were in the clubhouse this summer too, so you know this on a firsthand basis, like Tovar is a quiet, get things done type of player. He doesn't really involve himself in the media. He doesn't, put himself out there from a PR standpoint. And not that you have to be a good player or even to be the face of the franchise. I mean, look at Nikola Jokic for the Denver Nuggets. He's the best basketball player in the world. And he's the face of the franchise for the Nuggets. And he, is a quiet, soft-spoken, kind of keeps to himself type of guy. But I do think there is value in a player who not only plays really, really well, offensively, defensively, but also has a certain social and cultural air about him. He's got some swag to him, as I put it. And we've seen Brenton Doyle do interviews with MLB Network numerous times. I mean, it feels like it's every other week he's on MLB Network doing an interview with them. Like, he's more visible to the national eye than I think Ezequiel Tovar is. Do you think that plays into how people perceive him as that potential face of the franchise for the Rockies moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. And I think Doyle's media presence, based on kind of what I gathered from our good friend Patrick Lyons up in the press box and a couple of the other media folk that we have gotten to know, Doyle last year, I think he might have been the worst qualified hitter in the sport. And so when he was talked to by the media, he was more of a quiet guy. And in fact, Doyle is my second player interview ever at the start of the summer. And I kind of got that vibe to him as well. I even asked him, hey, is this quiet leadership always kind of been your thing? And he basically said he lets his game do the talking. And so I think, honestly, he's learning how to be one of the prevalent media guys for the Rockies. And shoot, it got to a point this summer where, he won Player of the Month in July. We were trying to come up with questions for the other players because all we wanted to do was ask questions to Doyle.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting you brought up his offense too, because I think there's no denying his defense is incredible. But offensively, he's also completely turned his game around and I think found his groove. Offensively, he's one of just 8 players this season to have 20 doubles, 20 home runs, and 25 stolen bases or more on all of those. He joins Ellie De La Cruz, Jarren Duran, Francisco Lindor, Zach Neto, Shohei Ohtani, Jose Ramirez, and Bobby Witt Jr. That's elite category to be. Those are all the best players in the in baseball right now. And so I think you start to see that confidence being built as he's starting to realize that he's in the same conversation as some of these best players in baseball at their respective positions. That's got to do something mentally for you too, being able to have that positive confidence going into in an interview with us or an interview with MLB Network, or even just, carrying yourself and your presence, out on the field.
Yeah, I think back to when he finally hit his 20th homer after being stuck on 19 for a while. And I believe Thomas Harding told him that he was the, so-and-so player all time for the Rockies to have joined the 2020 club at a certain age. And then he read off 3 of the Rockies all-time greats. And Doyle was like, oh, well, that's pretty good company to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I think, still focusing on the media side of it, last night after the Sunday Night Football game, Jameson Williams had a player press conference, and he kind of went viral because when he got to the podium, he was all smiles, and he said, "I've never done anything like this before." Yeah. And so as you continue to get used to talking to the media, you're going to naturally get better at it. Experience is the best teacher, and yeah, it's been fun to watch Doyle grow into this role.
Well, and look, there's a lot of guys on this Rockies team that have never spoken to the media at the same level that, they're now getting, because it's just one of those situations where you've got 12 MLB debuts, and, it's there's a lot of young guys on this team. But I wanted to go back though to this whole idea of, him being one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball right now. And I wanted to ask you, because I posted this a clip of him making that diving catch the other day, and I said in it, granted emotionally, said, Brenton Doyle's the best center fielder in baseball. And I got a ton of comments of people disagreeing, and a lot of people also agreeing as well. But I do think there's a conversation to be had that if you've taken the defensive run that he's been on pretty much since the All-Star break, but even a little bit before that, could you make the argument that he's in the top 5 best center fielders in baseball with how he's playing right now?
Yeah, without question. I mean, defensively, the only guy that's now entered the conversation with him, to me, is Jackson Merrill in San Diego, and he's another young guy playing in his rookie season. But you look at, he really should have been an all-star looking back at the numbers now. And you kind of track McMahon's season where now virtually all of his numbers are behind Doyle's, and it makes it more abundantly clear that he should have been an all-star. But I think you look around the game nationally, the National League All-Stars this year in the outfield were pretty weak, relatively speaking, to past years. And you'd be really hard-pressed to find 5 better center fielders than Brenton Doyle. I couldn't come up with 5 names.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were saying Dalton Varsho with Toronto. That he was better. I haven't seen a ton of his game. I don't watch a lot of Blue Jays games outside of just catching up on highlights and stuff like that. I also think the lack of runtime that we've seen Brenton Doyle. It's a similar conversation we have about Tolia. It's like Tolia could be a Gold Glove first baseman, but we just haven't seen him play enough games yet, to be kind of qualifying for those conversations at the moment. And I think for Brenton Doyle, it feels similar where he had, like you said, some issues last year offensively that kind of took away from his overall game. And then coming into this year, he started to find his stride. But now people are starting to realize that he's playing well. But they say, oh, well, I haven't seen him for the past 5 years doing that. And so I think that plays into it. But I agree. I mean, I think him, Dalton Varsho, Jackson Merrill, these are guys that, I think will be running the center field spot for years to come. I do think this is a situation where the Rockies defensively could have potentially 2 Gold Glovers in the outfield if Nolan Jones can stay healthy and play at the level that he is able to play at. If Brenton Doyle continues to play at that level, for years to come, I think having a 2 Gold Glove outfield is not out of the question for the Rockies in the next few years.
No, that'd be incredible. Nolan Jones has the best arm from the outfield in baseball. And I do want to credit Jordan Beck because early in the season in May, he broke his hand or wrist, something in that area. There's a lot of bones there.
Sure.
Making a diving catch. I was actually in my first series of the year. And then he comes back from injury, and it might have been last week or maybe the week before. He makes another diving catch on a play that looked exactly like it. And this time it was in right field.
Yeah.
And these guys are young. The Rockies could be set up for a great run at the outfield position.
Well, what is it? They have one of the top-ranked outfield minor league systems too. They might be the number 1 ranked outfield in the minors. They are at least up in the top 5 for outfield teams. So it's not just the current outfield. I mean, you've got guys that are in the wings waiting to come up that are legitimate outfield contenders. I just don't know what we're going to do with all of these guys. Brenton Doyle's locked down his spot. Nolan Jones, unless he comes back next year and proves that, he's not what he used to be, he's probably locked down that 2nd spot. And Jordan Beck, as of now, has locked down that 3rd spot. But I think Jordan Beck's the person that is more of he's got to continue to consistently perform. Otherwise, there might be another prospect that gets called up to get a shot. But that outfield is just stacked for the Rockies right now. I mean, there's no denying that the outfield is not going to be the problem moving forward for the Rockies in the coming years.
Yeah, I think you outlined it perfectly because it's awesome that right now the outfield looks like it has all the potential in the world. And then you look at the minor league system and it's just oozing potential too. But then you kind of realize okay, this is turning into a traffic jam. And even if all the cars in the freeway are Lamborghinis, if they're all stuck behind each other, you're not going anywhere, right? So September is going to be an important month for the young guys. And I know we're going to talk about some prospects later in the show, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
I love that analogy, by the way. I'm totally going to use that. Yeah, even if all the cars are Lamborghinis, if you're stuck in traffic, those Lamborghinis ain't going nowhere. So yeah, totally. I mean, and it's that whole idea about Charlie Condon. He's your top draft pick, of the last draft. It's and he's got a couple years probably before he makes his debut, maybe even next year if they're going quick with him. But what do you do with him? So yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. In a minute though, I have a little quiz for you. I'm gonna do a nice fun little segment with you in a moment. But before we get into that, got to give a shout out to our friends over at UC Health, because UC Health right now they're rolling out this new initiative. It's called the Ready, Set, Go Challenge. And the goal is to get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state in the country. And look, we're off to a good start. I know Coloradans are outside right now. The weather is beautiful. Noah just mentioned that he misses the nice dry air here in Colorado. This is the best time of year in Colorado too, because it's like not over 90 degrees. You're getting low to mid 80s every single day. It is a beautiful time to get outside. So with this Ready, Set, Go challenge, using a combination of nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mindfulness, it's all about just creating these little changes, these little adjustments that add up and help you to live better today than you were yesterday. And my advice to you guys right now through this, just get outside, enjoy this nice weather while you can before it starts getting cold. So if you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Go challenge, click the link in the show notes of this podcast or go to uchealth.org/Ready, Set, Go, spelled CO, and find out more there. We also got to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota, because Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. We all love Toyota here on this show, whether they were our sponsor or not. They are truly the best car on the market. They are affordable. They have a wide variety of different vehicles to choose from. They've got everything from hybrids, off-roading, towing capability trucks. They've got sleek, the Toyota Camry, one of my favorite cars, looks like a badass sports car out there. But you also can, get a nice SUV, the 4Runner, the Highlander, the RAV4, another one of my personal favorites. They've got everything that you could ever want in the Toyota lineup. They've got 17 different models. 4-wheel drive, especially with the winter months coming up here, you want to get your hands on a nice car that can handle some of that snow, rain, any of those kind of conditions out there here in Colorado. So no matter what you're into, Toyota's got you covered. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and the Rockies. All right, we got a game for you, Noah. I want to show you a clip of an outline of a Colorado Rockies player's swing, and I want you to guess whose swing this is. This is a current active Rocky, and here's the clip. Can you see it on your screen?
B-Rod.
B-Rod. Okay, you're going quick on that one. Why? Explain to me why you think that's B-Rod.
I the two-handed follow-through with the backsliding foot. That's what I believe.
There you go. All right, and the answer is
Mr.
B-Rod himself.
Dang.
Dude, that was like a record time.
Well,
I thought it was going to take you like a few more seconds than that.
Look, I had to show out because on Blake Street Banter, when we do our trivia, I haven't won one round yet. I'm 0-4, and so I had to put on a good performance.
That's solid. Hey, have you tried like going through some of those? Have you seen that it's not an app, but it's like a website that you can, that like every day, it's like Wordle almost. It gives you a swing and you've got like a certain amount of guesses to get. Have you seen that before?
I haven't seen it, but every time it pops up on my Twitter feed, I enjoy just looking at it, and if I don't know it, go through the replies, and someone always likes to reply with the answer.
Yeah, there you go. See, so that's a good one. It's the @bat. I think it's called like @bat.app online. That's a fun one though. It keeps you going. I was looking for Rocky's swing, because the hard thing is they don't like tell you who the player is at first, so you have to like go through every single guess until you can get to it. And the second one I did happened to be B-Rod. So I was like, let's go. I'm putting this on the show. See if Noah can get his Rocky swings in order. You crushed it, dude. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think if you were to, I'm stumped on the majority of the ones that cover the rest of the league. But, after spending 3 months with the Rockies, you get to really, you see their swing up close and personal. And then on top of that, you watch it on TV all the time. So yeah.
That's true. I think pitching too, like they have a pitcher's one, and the pitching ones are kind of hard. Like there's a couple where you're like, I can kind of see, but like you're looking at like follow throughs and stuff. Like I could probably not tell you who, like what pitcher it is on the Rockies if you showed me that on most of the pitchers. Like there's not like a telltale like, oh, this guy's a submariner or something. Maybe Justin Lawrence, the kind of sidearm like 3/4 throw, but like other than that, there's not an obvious pitching move that I would see on the Rockies.
Yeah, maybe Kyle Freeland with he kind of has a leg drag at the top. But it'd be tough.
that would be really tough. So maybe next time, since you were so quick on that one, I'll have to get you a pitcher for the next one. Make it a little harder for you. Hey, speaking of pitchers, Victor Vodnik back for the Rockies. He was listed yesterday. He warmed up in the bullpen. But I wanted to get your thoughts because I've talked about this last week a little bit. But now that you're on the pod, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Victor Vodnik, had that little kind of injury. He was on the 15-day IL. Went down to Hartford, to kind of rehab. But while he was down, Seth Halverson kind of came onto the scene for the Rockies and has been lights out since coming up. He throws 101 miles an hour, averaging on his fastball. He's got a devastating changeup, a good slider, I think, is his other off-speed pitch, and he locates really well, and he's super intense. My initial reaction to seeing Seth Halverson pitching for the Rockies was, that's our closer. Like, I know he's only thrown 3 games or whatever it is, 3 or 4 outings, but like he looked like a closer to me. And this is not to take away from Victor Vodnik, but he just seemed mentally determined in a way that was at another level in his first 3 starts or his first 3, appearances. Do you think there is a competition or could be a competition between Vodnik and Halverson for that closer role? Or do you think that Bud Black was probably gonna rock with Vodnik even in the years to come, for the Rockies?
I think there could and should be a competition. I mean, we've seen in the past Rockies relievers. I like to think of Jake Bird as the best, most recent example.
Yeah.
It is a very, very year-to-year basis with them. I mean, a couple years ago, Justin Lawrence looked like he'd be the closer of the future. And now, we're seeing him in the middle innings, and we've kind of come to know that high leverage, he loses his command a bit.
Yeah.
The best part about Halverson and Vodnik is they're both 24, and they both throw like 101 miles an hour, which is always a plus in the late innings. So when Vodnik struggles, and we've seen it from time to time in the past couple of months, it is because he gets a little overamped, and Bud Black will tell you the same thing, and loses his command of the fastball. I mean, we've seen a couple just sail to the backstop, even in a row at times. And
watch out with Merrifield.
Yeah. Oh man, he was going to give the Rockies an earful for no reason. Yeah. But with Halverson, he's 24 as well, same as Vodnik, and he's actually a couple months younger than Vodnik. But he finally got up to the big leagues after just dominating the minor leagues, and for him to come on and have an instant impact, that's been something we've been asking for a while from any Rocky debut. I mean, more from the hitting side, it feels like every time we call someone up, they really struggle for a while. Unlike an Ellie De La Cruz when he hit a 3-run homer in his first game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's straying a bit far from the question. But yeah, I want there to be a competition at closer, especially because Coors Field is just so difficult and it's super variable, the Rockies relievers.
Yeah, well, and you and I have said it a couple times on this podcast, Rockies need to be checking boxes. And I think maybe they haven't checked the closer box yet, but you've got 2 options. And options are good. Like if you're not going to have a box checked yet with that spot, if you're not going to say this guy is our closer, the second best version of that is, well, we haven't chosen our closer because we have 2 really good guys who are going to compete for that spot. And that, or even maybe the Rockies go a kind of unconventional route where they say, we're not going to solidify just one closer. We're going to go based off of feel, like we're going to go on kind of a, hey, Vodnik's been throwing a couple innings recently. He's gotten a couple closes. We're going to bring Halverson in to close this one out or vice versa. I don't necessarily think the Rockies need to determine a closer at this point because you now have 2 guys that can come in late in innings and get those high velocity, high intensity, high leverage outs when you need them. And if Vodnik's struggling, short leash, you take him out, you put Halverson in, and you hopefully get a different outcome, and vice versa. Options are huge for the Rockies at this point, and I think for the first time in their bullpen's history, recent history, you actually have a couple options. And I can't think of the last time we've been able to say that for a Rockies bullpen, at least this year. I don't think we've had really reliable options that we could say these two guys are going to get things done in the bullpen 75% or more of the time. I think this is the first time we've been able to have that discussion.
Yeah, well, quantity doesn't always equal quality, but when you're in the position that the Rockies are, where they're trying to avoid back-to-back 100-loss seasons, it sure helps to have options, as you said. And, I mean, beyond Halverson and Vodnik, Jaden Hill, he can touch 100.
Yep.
And it just feels like the bullpen right now has kind of become my dream bullpen. Like, this is what we've wanted for now several years. And it's relieving to see these guys come in. Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see these guys come in and say, like, okay, I'm excited to watch what you're going to do this inning. Instead of, okay, I'm nervous.
Yeah, well, and I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing Halverson pitch again. And I think that's interesting. I was talking to someone else about this the other day, and they were saying, I'm just not that excited about the Rockies. They're not playing well and whatever. And I understand that. Like, that's a fair assessment. And maybe I'm biased because I cover the team, but I am actually excited about the Rockies right now because every single night you don't know what you're going to get from a young 22-year-old, like Drew Romo. Like, are we going to get his first home run? Are we going to get his first, are we going to get to see him just gun someone down from his knees? Are we going to see Halverson come in and get 3 up, 3 down by going 101 mile an hour fastball changeup combo? Like Jaden Hill, speaking of him, 3 up, 3 down in his MLB debut, went 96 to 99 on his fastball, great off speed, good command, did it in front of his family. Like, great to see that. That's the types of things that I think Rockies fans can hold their hat on. And you just said, this is your dream bullpen for the context of where we are in our season, because you're starting to see these new guys debuting. And on top of that, the Rockies bullpen is on a roll right now. Rockies bullpen over the last 9 games, they've thrown 29 and 2/3 innings. They have a 1.26 ERA in those 9 games. Opponents are hitting 180 against them, and the opponents have a 547 OPS. Like, again, small sample size, but the Rockies have been playing very good teams. You just won a series against the Brewers, in every single game being close game, a tight game. Your bullpen kept you very much in it. Like, this is the confidence builder that I think Rockies fans need, that the team is headed in the right direction from a bullpen standpoint, and also the pitching staff within the bullpen, or within the players, the pitchers in those bullpens, in the starting rotation, to help say, hey, this is who we can be. We just need to kind of continue moving some pieces around and continue building that confidence into the next couple of years when it actually hopefully matters.
Look, you said last 9 games. That is a small sample size. But they've played the Brewers, playoff team. The Braves should be a playoff team. Yeah. And the Baltimore Orioles will be a playoff team. It's not like they're doing this against the Marlins, White Sox, and Nationals, not to throw a straight.
Their bullpen sucked against the Marlins.
Yeah. Well, and how representative is that of the season when you talk about the Rockies playing much better against plus 500 teams than sub 500 teams? So it is an interesting mix, because we are getting these signs of, hey, like we can compete with the best of the best, the postseason teams that you have to be able to beat to be a postseason team yourself. Now let's take care of business against the teams that are bottom dwellers, and start making moves towards competing. And look, it's September 9th. That's not happening this year, but you are setting yourself up for doing that by getting the experience for so many young guys.
And building confidence in young guys. And I said this to you when you were on the show last. I want to see these young guys pitching now when it doesn't matter from a wins and losses standpoint, because next year and the year after that, at least at the beginning of the year, it matters. I don't think the Rockies are making the playoffs next year, but I want them to play as if they will. I want them to show up on day one and compete for that. We have seen teams like the Rangers, the Diamondbacks, the Royals, even the Tigers, who have been nobodies, turn around next year, in a year and be playoff competitive teams. So again, I'm getting ahead of myself with the Rockies. they have a lot of work to do before they can become a surprise competitive playoff team. But these are the little things that you have to do. Getting your bullpen some confidence, getting Jaden Hill, Seth Halverson, Luis Peralta, Jeff Criswell, guys like that need to be getting their confidence now. Bradley Blaylock, throw him in there too as a starter. In games that don't matter, kind of check off that whole like MLB debut jitters and get all of that out of the way so that come next year, we're ready to go. And I think the Rockies are doing that. They're playing good baseball for right now. And also, they're doing it on the road, which we don't normally see from a Rockies bullpen. Their success normally comes at home against, good teams. They're doing it now on the road against good teams, which you love to see.
Yes, and I think it's a bit simpler or more complex, depending on how you look at it, than, okay, let's work towards being a postseason team. Let's work on making these games in late July and August meaningful games.
Yeah.
And so much of that the Rockies started the season 7-27. That pit that you dug yourself, it virtually eliminated any importance from these late season games. And getting to a meaningful September will take some work, but let's get to a meaningful August where you have that excitement in the ballpark. And with a young team, baseball is so hard. It is a difficult game. A lot of it's just mental. All of a sudden, if you look up at the wild card standings, or heck, even the division standings maybe, and you see like, okay, that's it's worth scoreboard watching these other teams because we can make a move. That's what you want to. You just want to have that in at least August, right? Baby steps.
Make it about more than just the fireworks and the bobbleheads at Coors Field, and that's, I think, where the Rockies need to kind of shift to. And I like what you said. It's got to be about the little things. You're right. Don't look big picture. Don't look, are we making it to the playoffs next year? Which I don't think they are. But how can you reach meaningful baseball? You asked it in the Toyota chat, like a week ago. What do the Rockies need to do to what number do they need to hit? Whether it's winning percentage, whatever that is, to be a successful season for us Rockies fans, analysts to consider it a successful season. So I ask you that, in your eyes, where do the Rockies need to be next year for them to have it be a considered, successful season?
I am so glad that you asked me that because, I've been asking guys in the BSB group chat. I came on here last week. I think it was the Thursday show, asked you, or maybe it was the Tuesday. Not sure.
One of the shows.
But yes, it's a question that I love because you have to, the low water mark for this franchise in their history was last year's 103 loss season. And that kind of baffles me because they're a franchise with a lot of losing seasons. And so for last year to be the bottom out, mark, and this year they're trending towards, right around that same number. I think for me, next year, I don't think it's a postseason year. I don't think that's a hot take. I think these Rockies have to win 75 games, go 75-87 to consider it a significant step forward. Pushing 500 would be incredible. And, that would take an increase of about 20 games. I think trying to get an increase of anywhere between 10 and 15 games would be huge. I mean, that would put us right about the 75 mark. And that's what I think. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think for me, it's as simple as it can be. Just it needs to be moving forward. Like you've got to be making improvements, not just like, oh, you only lost 97 games this year. It's like, no. It needs to be making visible improvements to where we can recognize that what's being done is moving forward. Like, I don't, we're going to do what we need to do, but like, I don't think Rockies fans are going to actually hang around for another 2 or 3 more 100-loss seasons. Like, and I'm not saying people are going to never come to the ballpark, but we're already seeing attendance decrease this season compared to the last few. I think people are starting to get fatigued. Fans are starting to get fatigued. So I want to continue this conversation, though, here in a second. But before we do that, got to give a shout out to our sponsor over at Coors Light because, look, Coors Light, it's the best light beer on the market right now, and it pairs well with anything. It's still warm outside. It's still baseball season. I know it's football. I know football's back. We're all excited to see, football be back on our televisions, although the Broncos and Buffs didn't have the exciting explosion onto the scene that fans thought they were going to. Still a good time to be a sports fan in general here in Colorado. And that means baseball mixed into all of that as well. The Rockies are coming back home this weekend. So if you're heading out to Coors Field, go up to the rooftop bar, go take some $3 Coors Light before first pitch. I think it's like $4 after like the 7th inning or something like that. I don't know. Either way, no matter what it is, it's worth it because it is the best way to just embrace that chill mindset, relax a little bit, hang out, enjoy some nice, refreshing Coors Light. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Also, got to share some love with our friends over at Bet365 because at Bet365, well, they don't do ordinary. They believe that every single sport should be epic, and it is a great time to be a sports fan right now. With the return of football season, baseball's still in full swing. You've even got, golf wrapping up. You've got some other sports coming around here the corner. It is a great time to get involved into the sports betting world. So if you open an account using code DNVR365, you deposit $10. You can choose between either a bet and get offer by placing a bet of $5 or more, getting $200 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer by placing a bet of up to $1,000. And if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem or want help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. I want to go back to what we were just talking about, Noah, where we were talking about fan fatigue. Because I wasn't planning on talking about this today, but I think it's an interesting point. And we have seen a decrease in attendance significantly by almost, 2,000 or 3,000 fans per game this time of year compared to the last year's previous. I do feel like this is a critical juncture for the Rockies as a franchise because I think over the last few years, the Rockies ownership, their franchise in general, has been able to get away with this idea that Coors Field is a destination location for baseball fans and, just a social setting in general in the Denver area. You can get $5 tickets and go hang out, have some cheap drinks, enjoy some beautiful weather, and hang out with friends and watch some casual baseball. I do feel like, though, that can only last you so long when your team is not putting a decent product out there on the field. And we were talking about what needs to happen for it to be considered a successful season in our eyes in the next coming years. Do you think that if the Rockies don't have that even just marginal improvement from an on-field standpoint, where, like you said, there maybe is meaningful baseball being played into August and September, do you think we're going to start seeing that reflected in the attendance numbers at Coors Field?
You honestly would hope so, because you want something to change. And the scariest thing to me that can happen for a franchise is when the fans become complacent with losing. And I like to think about it like this. With my teams, when I root for them, the joy of winning is heavily outweighed by the despise for losing. Like when the Broncos lose, I am upset. And then when they win, I'm like, all right, they did their job. Like,
they did their job. Yeah.
Let's have a great week. With the Rockies, it's the same way when it's a competing season. And I've found myself this year, since leaving the stadium and being back as a student at Indiana University, when I check the box score or when I am able to join and watch a game live, when they lose, I'm like, okay, well, did Jaden Hill pitch well? Like, did Halverson have a 1-2-3 inning? Or like what you said, did Drew Romo get his first homer? Not yet. But when they win, I have found myself like, awesome. Yeah. Like, this is great. And so to me, that's kind of backwards than what I'm used to. And I hadn't thought about it until you just asked me that. That almost to me is like, okay, I'm not complacent with losing because I want the Rockies to be super good. And all of my friends will tell everyone that a lot of people just call me delusion or say that I'm very delusional because I tend to believe my teams can overachieve what national belief is.
Sure.
But yeah, if this team continues to lose, I know the players don't deserve this, but sometimes at Coors Field, the road team's fans outweigh the Coors Field Rockies fans, and you're getting a "Let's Go Dodgers" chant at Coors Field. That you don't want to have. However, you've got to give the Rockies fans something to come out for. And if attendance doesn't dip, what is going to push change for a competitive franchise higher up? You've got to show the front office, and I'm not saying boycott the Rockies, but you've got to show them like, hey, we will show out for a winning team. This can be a baseball town. And I truly believe that Denver is a great baseball city. And we saw it with Rocktober, catch the fever. They are, it's a great fan base that deserves to be rewarded quite, bluntly. The Rockies got to improve.
Well, and I think it's a fan base that's like begging for something, give us anything. And I think right now you're right. The something that the Rockies could give us is meaningful baseball into August and September. Because right now we're in September. I have no doubt that Rockies fans are going to show up for 50% or more, 60, maybe even 75% of the season at Coors Field, because it is a destination location. It's, Coors Field is gorgeous in the summer. It's usually really nice weather. Like, there's a lot of fun promotions. Like, I understand all of that. And you get a lot of opposing fans that kind of clash in with the regulars. And so it's not good. Like, we're going to all of a sudden become the Chicago White Sox and have 12 people at our games. But I think what we're going to start seeing is that drop off come the end of August, early September is going to be a lot steeper if the Rockies put another 2 or 3 more heavy losing seasons together. That's when we're going to start seeing that drop off, because now you have football. It's getting a little colder, depending on the day. You've got, schools back for students. Like, work is picking back up again. It's no longer summer. Like, it's harder to get out to baseball games. And so people make the decision of, well, it's a Wednesday game at Coors Field in the middle of September, and the Rockies have been eliminated a month ago. Why do I want to go even just kind of hang out? Like, I'd rather just go sit at home, watch some football, or just, hang out with my kids or whatever. I think we're going to start seeing that drop off become a lot steeper if the Rockies aren't able to produce, some meaningful baseball and also produce a fun product. And that's the other thing is, like, there have been some games where the Rockies just aren't fun to watch. And one of the factors, and I have this, here, there's one of the topics, so I'll use this to segue into that, is the Rockies offensively have almost the highest strikeout ratio in all of baseball. I think they actually do, or at least in their franchise history, they have the most strikeouts this year. Here are some of the stats. Rockies have allowed the opposing starters to strike out 10 or more batters 15 times this year. That's most in major leagues. They have set a franchise record with most strikeouts in a single season. That's big. Over their last 5 games, the Rockies have struck out 75 or more times. That's second most strikeouts by a team over any 5-game span in the modern era of baseball. That cannot be happening. Like, that's not fun baseball for fans, even when you're a team that is not competing for a playoff.
Yeah, well, and if you're striking out that much, you better be hitting a whole lot of homers to
which
outweigh
they do.
The Rockies have cumulatively throughout the season increased their homer production. Shout out Brenton Doyle and Michael Tolia.
Yeah.
Ryan McMahon really carried their homer production for the whole first 2 months of the season. But yeah, this is an offense that has to get better. And you look towards next season, and I'll ask you this. I was actually, if there's a position group, and I know it's not football, but we're going to separate bullpen from starters, and we're going to separate infielders from outfielders, that has to improve the most for this team to be successful next season. What do you think that would be? And to be honest, I don't know if I could even come up with an answer for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously bullpen needs to continue to improve. There's no surprise there. But I think plate discipline, I mean, the Rockies play at Coors Field, half the season. a place that is an X factor, with the variables that it is with, pitching, hitting it at high elevation. And we've seen the success that they've been able to have when their hitters, like Michael Toglia, increase their plate discipline. So I wouldn't necessarily go as granular as like a certain position group that needs to improve. I just think as a whole, our plate discipline is a specific area that just needs to be improved upon. And I wrote, in the rundown, I think this is a coaching problem. I don't put a lot I don't put a lot of criticism into our coaching staff because I do think it's a really challenging thing to have to manage the lineup that they've been given with some of the players that they've been given and be competitive against Braves, Dodgers, those types of teams. But I think this is a coaching problem. If your team is striking out more than you ever have, they're on pace to have like over 1,600 strikeouts as a team this year. Like if that's happening to you, you have competent hitters too. Like outside of maybe the bottom half of your lineup, your top 5 or 6 hitters are very capable hitters. That to me is something that I think falls on the shoulders of the coaching staff. They have to improve the plate discipline of their hitters. We've seen Michael Toglia improve his plate discipline. We've seen Brenton Doyle improve his plate discipline. Maybe it's this thing of, when you play 12 plus MLB debut type rookies in a season, you're going to have some plate discipline issues. Maybe that's partially to blame. But I feel like if we're talking about playing meaningful baseball into September for the Rockies in the coming years, you've got to improve that side of your game. Otherwise, you cannot strike out 75 times in a 5-game stretch and expect to be competitive. Although they won a handful of those games in those 5 games, you just can't expect that long term.
No, and it's deeper than just striking out because you look at the surface level and you're like, okay, that's a ton of strikeouts. Like, let's get the ball in play. But then you think about how it costs you in situational at-bats. If there's a guy on third with 1 out, absolutely, and you don't get the ball in play and you strike out, you just cost yourself a run. And the Rockies, baseball, as there's blowouts sometimes and we see a ton of runs at Coors Field. A lot of games are decided by 1 or 2 runs, and just little at-bats like that make a difference. And, we can say it's a coaching problem, and then the Rockies and Bam Bam, their hitting coach, will tell us, well, you want us to bring up all the young guys and play them. This is just a byproduct of playing young rookies, which, it's true. But the stat that you read me of 75 strikeouts in 5 games, and that's the second most by a team over any 5-game span in the modern era, that is really, really mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. It's one of those stats that you read and you're just like, God, we're on the wrong side of history for that one. I think you bring up a great point about situational hitting. And I want to dive into this here in a moment. But before we dive into that, let me give a shout out to a couple more of our sponsors because we've got Chinook Seedery on board with us right now. And Chinook Seedery, they are truly the best seeds on the market. Noah, you and I have talked about Chinook seeds. I wish that the Rockies had them in the dugouts because they are the best seeds on the market. And the reason I like them so much, though, is because, they've got really quality ingredients. They don't leave a lot of like aftertaste in your mouth. They don't kind of rip up the inside of your mouth like a lot of other seeds do. But they've also got a ton of really cool flavors. My personal favorite, the Hatch Green Chili seeds, literally, especially this time of year. I mean, you go outside in Colorado, maybe New Mexico, if you're hanging out going on a little road trip, and you see them roasting the green chili on the side of the road. It smells like fall to me. Their green chili seeds, that's like the explosion of flavor that you get anytime you have those seeds. But either way, they've got 8 really unique flavors. So get a sampler pack, try all 8 of their flavors and see why they are the largest and best seeds on the market. Head over to ChinookSeedery.com using code ROCKIES for 20% off your order. They are the best seeds ever. Also, got to share some love with our friends over at Premier Members Credit Union, because if you're like me, this time of year especially, you're trying to get on board with all your finances. It's kind of the school year starting, even if you're not in school, like it feels like a changing of the seasons. And with that, you've got to get on top of your money. And that's why I recommend Premier Member Credit Union. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado. And with PMCU, you get local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like a reverse tier money market. So whatever your goals are, whether you're trying to start investing, you're trying to start saving, whether you're trying to just, pay off some loans or credit cards or whatever it is, PMCU has you covered. They're all about creating a better banking experience for their community. So why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com to learn more. All right, let's circle back, Noah, to what you were just saying and what we were just talking about. You talk about, having meaningful at-bats with runners in scoring position. I don't have stats on this because I wasn't prepared for this conversation, but I do remember Drew Goodman talking on the broadcast, and there was an at-bat during the Brewers series. I think it was in the game that the Rockies lost to the Brewers, where you had Tovar on second, or no, Tovar was on third with one out, and Drew Romo was up. And actually, I think it was Tovar was at second, Drew Romo was up, and Drew Romo and Drew Goodman ended up saying, hey, Romo needs to get Tovar over here. Like, you have to have a quality at bat here. And I think I remember Romo ended up like grounding out or flying out. Nothing happened. It was not the quality at bat that he wanted. But Goodman and Spilly were both very adamant and passionate in that broadcast about, like, these are the things that have to change, because especially with these young guys, like, you cannot strike out. You can't, have an infield fly. You cannot ground out ahead of the runner. You've got to move the runners over in those moments. Yes, there are a lot of young players on these Rockies team that are going through some of those growing pains right now, but that is that plate discipline that I'm talking about as well, of, like, you just have to be able to execute at the big league level when you get to those moments, and not put the pressure on, I don't know, like a Nolan Jones to come in with 2 outs and score a guy on getting a hit, because now, he has to make that happen. You've got to find ways to play smart baseball when you're not going to outslug a team like the Dodgers or the Braves or, the Padres.
Yeah, well, and I think Rockies fans so often are, hey, we got runners on, but we never got the big hit in the game, and we lost 5-3.
Yeah.
It's much deeper than that, because when you have a leadoff double, and this is probably the most common occurrence for the Rockies that I can think of, Coors Field yields a lot of doubles. And so several times the Rockies have had a leadoff double, and the next guy up, it's really easy for me to sit here and say it because I'm not in the box, but the next guy up, if it's a lefty, and Charlie Blackmon is so freaking good at this, he will look first pitch to just pull a ball on the ground to the right side and move that runner to third. And all of a sudden you need a sac fly to score a run. You need just a ball in play, really. You just don't strike out, and you score that run. And so when you don't get that first productive at bat, then all of a sudden you're like, well, shoot, now we need a single with a runner in scoring position. And then all of a sudden you're facing a 2-out situation where you're just trying to score a run. And so simplifying the game, I think, is a good way of kind of putting a bow on all of this. You do, we talked about it earlier in the show, you do the little things right, and then everything becomes easier from a winning. You win more games doing the little things.
It's all about the little things, man. And I take, you were there with the Todd Helton, ceremony at Coors Field. I take something that he said, when he was talking about his techniques, and, he's talking about when you get 2 strikes and a runner's on base, man, like, get into the crab stance, like, shorten up, choke up on the bat, spread your legs out, like, and just put the ball in play. And I know that's Todd Helton. Not everyone does that, but that's the mindset that I want to have these young guys starting to have, of, like, you are not going to outslug the freaking Los Angeles Dodgers. So shorten up and do something else. Play small ball with them. I loved Michael Toglia. It's like my favorite thing this whole season. Michael Toglia squaring around to bunt in that series against the Red Sox, and not getting the bunt down, but, like, trying to bunt for a base hit because he saw how much space there was on the third base side. I'm like, to me, that's what I want to see more of. Like, I don't care that he didn't get the bunt down. He thought of, there is a gap the size of Aurora on the left side of the field. I'm going to try to put the ball in play over there. Like, no one is expecting this ball to go on the third base side. So I'm going to do that. I want to see more of that moving forward. But before we wrap this whole show up, I want to do a quick kind of just, since we've got you on the show, get your takeaway on some of the recent prospects and your feelings and reactions to them and how they've played so far. So these are just the recent prospects. I want to go down the list and just get your take on, what do you think about them? I had here that we were going to grade them. I don't even think you need to grade them. Just give me your take on pros and cons, what your reaction to them is. So we'll start with Jaden Hill. We got to see Jaden Hill's first appearance at the big league level yesterday, I think it was, whatever day it was. What are your thoughts on him?
I thought it was awesome. He was pumping 96, 99 in the zone and worked a 1-2-3 inning. And so you can't ask for much more. He'll get that first career strikeout pretty soon.
I agree. Okay, Seth Halverson. We talked a little bit about him early in the show, but on your umbrella takeaway of Seth Halverson, how you feeling about that guy?
I mean, that dude can reach back and grab 102, and then I don't know if it's a splitter or a changeup, same action, but it takes off on lefties, and that, I mean, if you have nearly 20 miles an hour in difference from a 102 to your off speed, hitters just won't be able to adjust to that. And he's been a stud.
I don't know if you saw in his second MLB appearance, I don't know the team he was facing. I don't remember which team he was facing either, but he started with 7 consecutive changeups to start his inning. And I'm like, I love that. Like if you can, and located all of them, struck out one guy and got the second guy to ground out, and you're sitting at 2 outs now, and you have not yet thrown your 100-mile-an-hour fastball. That's incredible. Give me more of that. So yeah, love that. Jeff Criswell, he's been up for a couple weeks now. Seen him throwing for almost a month now for the Rockies. So what's your takeaway on Criswell?
I think he's done exactly what he's kind of been expected to do. He's come in, he's been solid in spots, and I just think that he's another guy that the Rockies, it's a perfect Rockies move for where they are in the season, because I'm not sure if he's really a part of the future like bullpen that will pitch in the postseason. But shoot, throw a dart at the board, and if it sticks, like keep him around, and I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah, he has some adjustments that need to be made. He's a little wild on his fastball, obviously. Hit Merrifield there and gave up back-to-back home runs to the Yankees. There are some adjustments that Bud Black has harped on, Criswell needing to make. But, like you said, he fills a spot right now. I don't, until he gives me a little bit more, I'm kind of neutral on him. Hasn't completely, ruined anything. But he's a young pitcher that, we'll kind of keep our eye on moving forward. Luis Peralta, thoughts on him and him, pitching for the Rocks.
Yeah, he was my favorite get at the deadline. And I love that he was able to exchange lineup cards with his brother in Milwaukee. And I think he's going to be a freaking stud for the Rockies. I'm so excited that we got him. And how old is he? He's super young.
He's like 22.
Yeah, he was born in 2001. And so I think he's 23. 23. But I love him. I think he's going to be a great get for the Rockies for years to come.
All right. Last one of the recents, Bradley Blaylock. Blaylock, another trade deadline acquisition. How are you feeling Blaylock's been doing?
Yeah, this is your guy, man. So I feel like you could really offer a strong opinion.
He is my guy.
Shoot, how about his first 5 starts before he had that one in Arizona were special stuff. And then Arizona was a bit tough, but New York was a stud against the Yankees. Yeah. And anytime you if you do something memorable like that, that's what the fans can remember. And I think that, that's all we're really asking for. So shoot, I know he had a bit of a rough outing in his most recent one, and maybe it was 2 starts ago at this point. Yeah. But, the Rockies, I think he's performed better than what they even might have expected.
I agree. Totally same with me. It was the Braves start that he gave up 4 runs in the first inning. Ended up pitching 5 innings, though, giving up no runs after that. So, those 4-run innings, unfortunate. Sucks that it was the first inning, too, with 2 outs. But those are going to happen with a young pitcher. I'm still very bullish on Bradley Blaylock. He's going to have some off days, but he's been pitching really well. And every single start that he's had, he's shown his stuff, and it's been... Yeah. So it's had a lot of upside, and so that's where I'm at with him. So yeah, I love it. I love the takeaways, man. Love having you on the show. The Rockies got a tough series though coming up against Detroit. They've got an off day today, but this Detroit team kind of exploded onto the scene, and they've been playing lights out baseball for the past few months.
The Rockies blueprint, perhaps. I mean, think about it.
I agree. Well, I remember like the Rangers, you know, I mean, the Rangers, before they were a World Series championship team, it was like the Rangers are a nobody. And then all of a sudden they're going to a freaking World Series. And you're like, what the hell happened in between? I literally asked our DLLS, one of our Rangers reporters, because I was like, tell us how you did it, you know, like how can we get that figured out? Yeah, give us your trade secrets. But I think Detroit, same kind of thing. Royals, I'll put them in that same box, you know, with them as well. But Detroit's going to be a tough series, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Look, man, we had a blast having you on the show. That's all the time we have today. But Noah, good luck in class, man. I know you probably have a long day of classes. Hopefully we could bring some Rockies joy to you on this Monday morning, though. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Christian. And shoot, we got to keep doing this. Let's do it, man. Anytime. I'm always available. Love talking Rockies with you, bud. That's going to do it from our fabulous producer, Tiff, our entire team here at DNVR. I'm Christian Saez. You can follow us on Twitter. Noah, real quick before we go, where can the people follow you? Yeah, I'm Noah. My personal is just at Noah Spirek, and I'm with Blake Street Banter. That's my at. That's your guy. All right, good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at CJJ Saez or at DNVR_Rockies. That has been it for us. The camera is too hot. That's time for us to go. We'll see you next time, guys. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast, sponsored by Bet365. Have a good one.
We all silly like the mayor.